Perhaps within every human being, there is an invisible thread binding us to the things we love, the things we fear, and even the things we believe we cannot live without. We hold on tightly to everything, loved ones, work, fame, beliefs, memories, as if letting go would make us fall into nothingness. Yet, it is precisely this invisible thread that causes our suffering, anxiety, and the inability to ever be truly free. The Buddhist philosophy of non-attachment is not a teaching that asks us to become cold, indifferent, or to abandon life. On the contrary, it is an art of living filled with compassion and wisdom, helping us to love without clinging, to act without fear, and to live amidst the world while keeping our mind tranquil. In this turbulent world, where everything changes faster than we can grasp, that philosophy becomes a light guiding the inner path, the path leading us back to true freedom. On the Buddha's wisdom journey, we are not seeking some distant truth, but simply listening to the depths within ourselves, where the winds of life still blow through, but no longer shake our hearts. For when we understand what non-attachment truly means, we realize, it is not the world that binds us, but the clinging within our own minds that forges the chains. In modern life, people often mistake non-attachment for indifference or avoidance. But in the Buddha's teachings, non-attachment is the purest form of love. It is when you love someone without wanting to possess them, help others without expecting anything in return, and work wholeheartedly without being bound by the outcome. It is the state of a liberated soul, where action and letting go become one, where there is no longer a struggle between wanting and not wanting. When we are still attached, we live like someone gripping a thorny rope. The tighter we hold, the more it hurts, yet we are afraid to let go, believing it's the only thing keeping us upright. We tie our happiness to external things, a relationship, a success, an image of ourselves. And when those things inevitably change, as all things do, we suffer and lose our way. But if we dare to release, to look deeply into the true nature of things, we will see that nothing ever truly belongs to us. Everything simply comes and goes, like waves rising and falling in the ocean of existence. Understanding this, we realize that non-attachment does not mean not loving, but rather loving completely without dependency. It is the love of the sun, always shining, yet never clinging to any flower. It is the freedom of the wind, always present, yet never needing a fixed form. It is the serenity of the lake, reflecting everything, yet holding on to nothing. Buddhism does not teach us to escape from the world, but to live within it without being controlled by it. When we see everything with the eyes of wisdom, we understand that all things are impermanent, nothing lasts forever. And within that impermanence, we learn how to let go. Not out of despair or resignation, but out of understanding. Understanding that every attachment leads to suffering. Understanding that only when our hands are empty can our hearts be filled with light. Non-attachment is the doorway to peace, the first step toward liberation. It doesn't require us to leave life behind, but simply invites us to look deeper into our own nature. When we are no longer dragged by desires or bound by fears, we finally begin to live, not as someone striving to become something, but as ourselves, in our most natural and complete state. On Buddha's wisdom journey, every teaching of the Dharma is not just a lecture, but a mirror reflecting the inner mind. And in today's journey, we walk together into the depth of the philosophy of non-attachment, to realize that freedom is not something we gain by having everything, but by no longer being controlled from within. Imagine a river, the water still flows, still receives every falling leaf, yet never holds on to any of them. That is the symbol of the mind of non-attachment, living, loving, giving, yet remaining as calm as still water. Not because it is indifferent, but because it understands that the nature of all things is to come and go. When we live with such a mind, all suffering gradually dissolves. We still work, still love, still cry, still laugh, but within every act, there is freedom and lightness. No more must be this way or must be that way. Everything simply is, and we simply live. That is the essence of the Buddhist philosophy of non-attachment, a philosophy not for those who wish to escape, but for those brave enough to live fully, and then gently let go. In today's journey on Buddha's wisdom journey, I invite you to listen to the whisper of letting go, where every tear, every smile, every pain becomes a doorway to wisdom. For only when we let go do we truly see that freedom does not lie in how much we have, but in how little we are attached, when we begin to contemplate more deeply on the concept of non-attachment, we realize that it is not an abstract or distant philosophy, but a very vivid reality in every breath, every gesture, and every thought we have each day. Attachment does not only lie in material things or people, but also permeates the deepest layers of our consciousness, where we cling to the image of ourselves, to the idea of who I am and how my life should be. That is why the Buddha taught, the root of suffering is attachment. We suffer not because life is cruel, but because we cannot let go of our own expectations. We suffer not because of loss, but because we cannot accept the change that is the natural essence of all things. Attachment keeps us constantly in a state of struggle, between wanting and not wanting, between gain and loss, between past and future. And in that very struggle, our mind is torn apart piece by piece. Buddhism does not teach us to destroy desire by force, but to recognize it through the light of mindfulness. When we truly see the nature of attachment, it will dissolve on its own. Just as when we light a lamp, the darkness naturally disappears, we do not need to drive it away. Likewise, when we shine the light of understanding upon our attachment, we see that it was only an illusion all along. Practicing non-attachment does not mean we must abandon everything: family, work, money, or relationships. It means learning to live among them without letting our mind become dependent. We can still work wholeheartedly, love deeply, and enjoy life fully. But always remember, everything is temporary, nothing lasts forever. This awareness helps us keep our mind peaceful amidst all changes. In relationships, non-attachment is a true art of loving. When we love someone, we often love not only them, but also the feeling they bring us. We fear losing them not because they truly disappear, but because we fear losing the pleasant sensations within ourselves. But when we love with a non-attached heart, we do not try to control, possess, or change the other person. We simply are, present, loving, caring, and letting go. To love without attachment means to respect the freedom of others as well as our own. We do not turn love into bondage, but let it become a natural flow, where two people walk together, learn together, and if necessary, let go together. For every relationship goes through the stages of birth, existence, change, dissolution. If we cling to something that has already changed, we only hold on to the shadow of the past, forgetting that the present is still inviting us to live on. The same is true in work. We often become attached to results, recognition, or the status we achieve. We believe our value lies in external accomplishments, so when we lose them, we feel meaningless. But if we observe deeply, we see that work is only a part of the flow of life, a means for us to express our energy, not our true essence. When we work with a non-attached mind, we act out of the joy of doing, not for the reward. And then, every outcome becomes light, arriving or leaving. Both are peaceful. In the spiritual path, non-attachment is even more fundamental. Many people practice to attain enlightenment, but the more they want enlightenment, the further they move away from it. Because that very desire is another form of attachment. Enlightenment does not come from forceful striving, but arises when the mind is completely relaxed, no longer clinging to success or failure, no longer identifying with, I am practicing, or, I have not attained. When the mind lets go, wisdom naturally appears. Non-attachment is the foundation of prajna, the wisdom that transcends all concepts of I and mine. We see the world as an endless flow, without beginning or end. Everything is merely the manifestation of conditions, when conditions are sufficient. It arises, and when they cease, it dissolves. Understanding this, we are no longer caught in the dramas of the mind, no longer judging or resisting. A person with a non-attached mind is not cold-hearted, but one who deeply understands the nature of all things. They can cry, they can laugh, they can love, they can lose, yet in all these states, there remains an unshakable foundation of peace. Like the vast sky, clouds may come and go, but the sky never loses its openness. Practicing non-attachment is not something we achieve in a day or a month, but a process of mindfulness from moment to moment. When we notice a thought arise, I want this, I hate that, just smile and be aware. Do not try to push it away, nor let it control you. Let it come and go, like ripples gliding across the still surface of a lake. Gradually, we will find ourselves lighter, freer, no longer swept away by waves of emotion. And within that letting go, we begin to feel a deep peace, one that depends on nothing. A peace that does not come from gaining, but from no longer needing to hold on. That is true freedom, the freedom the Buddha taught, not freedom from the world, but freedom from the bonds within our own mind. That if we are willing to pause in silence and truly listen to every subtle movement of the mind, we will realize that attachment does not lie in the external world, but in the way we interpret that world. A glance, a word, a memory, in themselves they are just fleeting phenomena, but the moment the mind arises with the notion, "This is mine. This is something I must hold on to," at that very instant, we begin to fall into suffering. Buddhism calls this state, ta, craving, the thirst to grasp, to possess, to prolong what is pleasant and to reject what is unpleasant. It is this craving that keeps us revolving in the cycle of suffering. It is like a fire that smolders endlessly, no matter how much water of reason we pour upon it, it still flares up in the deepest corners of the unconscious. Only when we shine the light of mindfulness upon its very roots can that fire truly be transformed. Non-attachment, in the Buddhist sense, is not the result of suppression, but of awareness and understanding. When we see that all phenomena are impermanent, we no longer wish to cling. When we realize that there is no real self existing independently, we no longer wish to defend or embellish this illusory I. Letting go does not come from force, but from wisdom that sees the truth. A very simple example. When we hold a flower in our hand, we know that no matter how much care we give it, the flower will eventually wither. But instead of fearing that, we smile and cherish the moment when it is in bloom. This understanding allows us to love without dependence, to appreciate without needing to possess. Such love is unconditional, not bound by outcome, by time, or by reciprocity. It is a pure love, the love of one who knows that every beauty is but a temporary visit from the universe. Non-attachment also does not mean indifference to pain. When a loved one passes away, we may still grieve, we may still shed tears. But within those tears, we know that separation is a natural part of the flow of life. Pain no longer becomes an abyss, but a doorway to understanding. We do not resist it, but embrace it. We do not judge it, but observe it. And precisely when we stop trying to escape suffering, we begin to see it dissolve. This world, in its deepest essence, never promises us stability. Everything is in motion, transforming, disintegrating, and arising again. The wise do not seek permanence in an impermanent world, they learn to live in harmony with it. They do not demand the river to stand still to reflect their image, but learn to see the beauty of its very flow. Non-attachment is the art of living in the world without being carried away by it. It does not make us indifferent, but more understanding and compassionate. When we are no longer bound by the desire for things to go our way, we can open our hearts to accept others as they are, and life as it is. From there, we begin to truly live, not as one who is running away, but as one who has returned home. A person who practices non-attachment lives with a mind like drifting clouds, free, flexible, yet full of love. They no longer fear loss, because they understand that nothing truly belongs to them. They no longer fear loneliness, because they realize that the essence of existence is never separate. When there is no more mine and yours, when the boundaries between self and others dissolve, only one energy remains, the energy of love and understanding. Perhaps that is why the Buddha once said, "When you no longer cling to anything, you have everything." This seemingly paradoxical statement is actually the deepest truth of life. When we cease to cling, our mind opens wide. When the mind is open, the world becomes infinite. We no longer confine ourselves in the frame of, I must, I need, I want. Instead, we flow with life itself, becoming a natural part of the universe. Practicing non-attachment is not only for those who have entered deep spiritual practice, but for anyone living amid this ever-changing world. It begins with the smallest things, letting go of a hurtful word, choosing not to argue to win, or simply smiling when things don't go as planned. Each such moment is a step on the path to freedom. And then, day by day, we begin to see clearly, attachment is merely a habit of the mind. When we recognize it, observe it, without judgment, without escape, those layers of attachment gradually melt away. Like thin ice dissolving under the sun, our mind returns to its natural state, light, pure, and vast. Non-attachment does not mean being heartless, but being wholehearted without bondage. We live fully, but do not let outcomes define our happiness. We love deeply, but do not let loss steal our peace. We help others, but do not seek recognition. That is the way of a free person, one who no longer needs to control, because they understand that the nature of all things is beyond control. Thus, non-attachment does not separate us from life, but allows us to live more completely in every moment. When we are no longer pulled by the past or haunted by the future, we truly dwell in the present, the only moment where life actually happens. And in that presence, we discover what humanity has been seeking for ages: unconditional serenity. Serenity does not arise from achieving something, but from ceasing to resist what is. When the mind stops struggling, the surface of the lake naturally becomes calm. When we stop trying to grasp happiness, happiness appears. When we stop seeking truth, truth shines forth in the very breath we take. Therefore, the practice of non-attachment is not merely letting go, but awakening from the dream of the self, from the illusion of ownership, to realize that we have never truly lost anything. Because we never truly possessed anything. Everything is but the flow of conditions, of interbeing, where nothing stands alone. And when we see this, we understand that all suffering is but temporary waves that can never drown the ocean of the mind. Then, we live in the world yet remain at ease. Having or not having, both are fine. Success or failure, praise or blame, coming or going, all are but breezes passing through the garden of the heart. And in that garden, we sit quietly, smiling, watching petals fall without sadness, watching new buds sprout without excitement, simply knowing that everything is unfolding exactly as it should. That is freedom. That is peace. And that is the very essence of the Buddhist philosophy of non-attachment, the path that leads the mind back to its primordial stillness, where there is nothing to lose, and nothing left to hold. There is a subtle truth that few people notice: attachment does not only reside in visible desires, such as wealth, status, love, or material things, but also hides deep within our very aspiration to practice. We may let go of the world, yet still secretly cling to the image of a practitioner, of an enlightened one, of a peaceful mind. The yearning for liberation itself can sometimes become the final chain that binds us, preventing us from being truly free. The Buddha once said that if a person is still attached even to the concept of non-attachment, they have not yet escaped the cycle of suffering. This is the deeper layer of wisdom, where all concepts are released, including the notion of letting go itself. When we see clearly that there is nothing to grasp and nothing to abandon, the mind returns to its pure, original clarity. This is the unabiding mind. A mind that does not cling to any object, whether material or spiritual. On that journey, non-attachment ceases to be a philosophy to learn and becomes a lived experience. It seeps into every breath, every gesture, every glance. When we eat, we know we are eating. When we walk, we know we are walking. When a thought arises, we neither chase it nor push it away. Everything is seen as it is, uncolored by desire or fear. In that simplicity, wisdom arises, and we realize that freedom is found nowhere else but in this very moment. If we observe carefully, we will see, attachment is simply resistance to reality. We don't want life to be as it is, we want it to be something else. We want that person to love us, we want our work to go smoothly, we want the body to be free of illness, we want life to stop changing. And when the world doesn't meet those wants, we feel pain. But the truth is, the world has never hurt us, only our expectations of it have. Non-attachment teaches us to look at everything with an equal eye. There is nothing to keep and nothing to reject. When we stop chasing pleasure and avoiding pain, we begin to touch the state of inner freedom. That freedom doesn't come from changing the world, but from seeing the world with a mind that no longer resists. In that moment, we live fully. A flower is just a flower. A rain shower is just a rain shower. Sadness is simply a cloud drifting across the sky of awareness. There's no need to push away, no need to hold on. When we allow everything to come and go naturally, we return to the original rhythm of the universe, where all things arise and fade according to conditions, where nothing is truly lost, and nothing is truly gained. The Buddha once compared life to a river. The water never stops flowing, yet it never truly goes anywhere. Each drop is part of the whole, each moment is the manifestation of countless conditions converging. When we understand this, we no longer cling to any single moment, for we know that everything is already perfect in its own way, even in moments that seem imperfect. A person who attains the mind of non-attachment can live in the marketplace yet remain as serene as if they were in a monastery. They do not seek silence by escaping noise but find silence within the noise itself. For they understand that stillness is not outside, but in the way we touch life. A person may sit still on a mountain and still have a restless mind, another may walk amidst the crowd and yet remain calm like a windless lake. When we practice non-attachment deeply, our inner conflicts begin to dissolve. We are no longer torn between wanting to live and fearing to lose, between wanting to achieve and fearing to fail. Our actions become natural, unforced, and uncalculated. We work for the joy of working, not for the outcome. We help others out of compassion, not expectation. We live for the sake of living, not for the label, I am alive. Such a person is no longer swayed by praise or blame, gain or loss. When someone praises them, they smile. When someone criticizes them, they still smile. For both are but sounds passing through the wind, nothing solid to grasp. Their mind is vast like the sky, nothing can wound it. And within that state, true love arises. When we are not attached, love is no longer clouded by fear or conditions. We love without needing to be loved back, we give without needing credit, we forgive without needing an apology. That love does not come from the ego, but from a deep understanding of the shared nature of all beings, that everyone wants happiness and everyone fears suffering. When we see this clearly, compassion naturally blooms, without effort, without reason. Non-attachment is the ripening of both wisdom and compassion. Wisdom helps us see the true nature of all phenomena, that nothing is fixed, and there is no real self. Compassion allows us to live within that world not with cold detachment, but with warmth and love. When these two merge, a person reaches a state of absolute freedom, not bound by the world, yet fully alive within it, like a lotus blooming unstained from the mud. When we live with the spirit of non-attachment, every moment of life becomes precious. There is no past to regret, no future to worry about. Each instant becomes a miracle, because we are fully present in it. Every breath becomes a blessing, every step a meditation, every glance an act of gratitude to life. A wondrous thing happens when we let go. Everything we've been seeking begins to find us. When we stop forcing happiness to come, happiness arises naturally. When we stop chasing peace, peace spreads through us. When we stop seeking love, love returns to our heart. For in truth, we have never lacked anything, it is only attachment that made us feel incomplete. And then, one day, when we sit quietly, desiring nothing, we see that everything is still flowing gently. Nothing needs to be different. Nothing needs to be added. We no longer want to let go, for there is nothing left to let go of. We no longer want to hold on, for there is nothing left to hold. The mind becomes transparent like the sky after rain, all illusions vanish, leaving only vast stillness. In that place, we touch what Buddhism calls liberation, not liberation from life, but liberation from the invisible chains of the mind. We still live, still love, still laugh, still cry, but in all of it, there is absolute freedom. Perhaps the hardest thing in the human journey is not letting go of material possessions, but letting go of the need for control within the mind. As long as we want everything to go our way, as long as we cling tightly to the image of who I am and how I must be, then no matter how peaceful the outside world appears, the mind will still be full of storms. Because attachment does not only exist in actions, it resides in the way we see life. It hides in every moment we want to fix the present, to make it into something else, while the present itself is already a complete manifestation of truth. The philosophy of non-clinging in Buddhism does not teach us to become cold or detached from life. On the contrary, it teaches us to love more completely, for only when there is no attachment can love be free. When you help someone without seeking recognition, that love is as pure as a stream flowing through the forest, untouched by dust. When you live amid the world without seeking perfection, every moment you experience becomes a blooming flower, gentle, natural, yet filled with infinite beauty. An enlightened person is not one without emotions, but one who knows that emotions are not the self. They can cry, they can laugh, but between the tears and the smile, there remains a deep, silent space, a place no one can reach, where their heart is free. And it is precisely that freedom which makes them humble, simple, yet profoundly moving. If we look back on our lives, we will see, every suffering we have ever experienced arises from holding on to a person, an idea, a past, or a future. But when we pause and breathe, when we realize that nothing truly belongs to us and nothing needs to be kept, a deep serenity appears. It is not loud, not mystical, just absolute stillness, like a lake when the ripples have ceased. Non-clinging does not mean abandoning the world, but living within it without being bound by it. When we understand that everything is temporary, we no longer fear loss. When we see that everyone is walking their own path, we no longer feel the need to control or impose. When we understand that true happiness comes not from attaining but from releasing, we truly begin to live. Freedom does not lie in how much we have, but in how little we are bound by anything. Those who live with non-clinging do not lose joy, they simply stop making joy conditional. They smile, but their smile has no reason. They love, but their love needs no return. They live, simply for the sake of living, like breath, like a river, like clouds drifting across the sky. Non-clinging is not a philosophy to be understood intellectually, but a path to be lived. Each time you find yourself suffering over something, look deeply into its root. What are you holding on to? An expectation, An image of yourself? A memory that refuses to fade? And when you see that none of these are truly you, a layer of suffering dissolves. That is the first step toward freedom. To live in the spirit of non-clinging. We do not need to leave the world, we only need to learn how to stay with the present. Sitting quietly, breathing in and out, watching thoughts come and go, that itself is the practice of release. In every moment. Each mindful breath is a door opening toward freedom, each moment of letting go is a step toward peace. Life never needed us to strive so hard. Everything is already unfolding in the most natural way, and all we need to learn is not to obstruct that flow. When the mind no longer resists, the world becomes transparent. When we stop searching for happiness out there, happiness begins to bloom within. If there is one lesson most worth remembering from the philosophy of non-clinging, it is this: all things are temporary, yet within that impermanence, we can find eternity. For when we let go, we lose nothing, we simply return to ourselves, to the mind that has always been free since the beginning of time. Try, just once, to live without holding on, without needing to prove, to control, or to become perfect. Let life touch you, as the wind touches the leaves, as the rain falls on your shoulders. And in that moment, you will understand. Impermanence is not a tragedy, but a miracle that allows us to love more deeply, live more fully, and release more gently. If today's reflection on Buddha's wisdom journey has touched something within you, please share your thoughts in the comments below. Each of your reflections is not just a personal voice, but part of our collective awakening. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel to continue walking together through stories of mindfulness, teachings of wisdom, and the journey of rediscovering freedom within your own heart. For who knows, through just one word, one teaching, one breath, you may realize that freedom has never been far away, but is right here, in this very moment.